The sports world was rocked by the announcement of the LIV PGA merger, and I'm sure a lot of you have questions. So to help us break down what this means, not only for golf, but for international sports as a whole, is four-time best-selling author Ian O'Connor. He's on the line now. Thank you, Ian. I'm going to keep this first question nice and simple. Why did the PGA make this deal?
Money, Brandon. What else, right? And I wrote about this last June for the New York Post. And I said this was all about the money and not about anything else. The PGA Tour at the time, when Phil Mickelson made his jump to LIV Golf for a reported $200 million, tried to make this a morality play. It never was that. It was always about the bottom line. And the PGA Tour here saw an avenue to grab some of that same Saudi blood money they talked about when Mickelson, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, and others took that kind of deal and left the PGA Tour for LIV. So I've been covering sports for about 37 years. It is one of the most hypocritical things I've ever seen a sports executive, Jay Monahan, and a league, the PGA Tour, do. And that's going to be a very difficult thing for those people to live with as we move forward with the sport of golf.
Money over morals. I mean, the PGA Tour compromised with the Saudis, and in return, they betrayed some of the players that stayed loyal to them all along, Ian. And what does this tell you about Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour as a whole?
Well, what it tells me, Brandon, is they don't have a soul. It's a soulless operation. And so, again, they're going to have to live with that. And Jay Monahan, it was an interesting way he phrased it yesterday when he said, I recognize that people are going to call me a hypocrite. Yeah, Jay, that's because you are a hypocrite, or at least you certainly acted like one in this case. And so, listen, for the sport of golf, if you're a fan who doesn't care about some of these moral issues, then the sport is going to be better to consume and watch, and because the greatest players in the world now will be competing against each other more often. And that's really, if you're a fan, that's what you want. But these other issues, wow, it's been a long time since I've ever been shocked as much as I was when I saw the news of this merger come across. And the PGA Tour really looks like a total clown show, going into business with the very people that they criticize, and they really just said all kinds of awful things about him, rightfully so, to some extent. And also what they said about their own players who left. They ended up taking the same deal with the Saudis that those players took, and that is a really bad look.
So where does professional golf go from here? Like, not only from the players, but from the fans? Like, what changes do you see coming?
I think the PGA Tour will incorporate some sort of team concept that LIV started. It was very hard to follow or care about, as I wrote yesterday in the Post. And so I don't know how that team concept is going to look. That ultimately, when you look at tee to green, that's going to be the legacy of LIV, I think, under this new golf umbrella. Outside of that, I don't see Greg Norman being involved. And Jay Monahan, if he can weather the storm here, will apparently be running the show. But I think you will see, as I mentioned earlier, a better product ultimately. So if you're a golf fan who only cares about that, you might be in business here. But until that point, Monahan is going to have to try to survive because his players are so upset right now that he betrayed them. He cost some of these guys, Ricky Fowler to Matsuyama, between 75 and maybe $200-300 million. Those players have every right to be absolutely furious that this happened. So Monahan is going to have to deal with that.
All right, so let's go beyond golf for the moment. This is something a lot of people are talking about online. This isn't the first time that we've seen oil money in sports. Do you think that this merger sets a dangerous precedent in the terms of sports washing on the global scale?
Well, we've seen the Saudis try to do this and try to humanize or normalize their regime by being involved in whether it's the Premier League, Formula One, other sports entities. And so this isn't going away. I think this advances their cause. This is a victory. As I wrote today in the Post, it reminds me a little bit of the NFL versus the USFL many years ago. But in this case, the USFL actually won. And so, yeah, if you're concerned about sport washing, this is not a good day for you. And I think this is certainly not going away. The Saudis have been successful with these entities around the world, and I think they'll continue in that pursuit.
Go ahead and head on over to NewYorkPost.com/sports to check out the full article. Ian, thank you for joining us as always.
Thanks, Brandon.